Welcome back to Best of the Bets. I'm Christina Nicolaides and we're looking at this weekend's football action. We're specifically looking at Sunday. We're looking at Premier League, La Liga and Serie A. And I have our regular guests with me. I have Sam Dymond, our football expert and editor of bestofthebets.com. Welcome, Sam.
Hello.
And I have Gareth Walker with us, who is our bookie extraordinaire, booking sensei. Hey.
Hi.
Our first game we are looking at is Arsenal versus Manchester United. Manchester United, they have been crowned champions.
Arsenal 2.2, draw 3.55 and Manchester United 3.35.
If you think the season's pretty much done and dusted for Manchester United, you may be wrong because they still have this points record.
Yeah, and they want to beat Chelsea.
95% in 2005. 4 more wins will do that.
Yeah.
So there's still reasons to be looking at backing Manchester United here. It's a tough one to call. I mean, these two teams since January the 1st have been the best two teams in the Premier League. That's backed up by...
result-wise.
Yeah, that's what counts, I'm told.
Yeah.
But no, you're quite right, because I saw Arsenal against Fulham last week and was very unimpressed.
But they still may well finish third, having me...
Absolutely, they've kept back-to-back clean sheets, which helps. But they have Olivier Giroud suspended for 3 games. Yeah. But that might not necessarily be a bad thing. I'm a big Giroud fan, but he looks like he's been flagging and the season's caught up with him in recent weeks. So it offers the opportunity elsewhere. Gervinho, often been the butt of many jokes, but since he came back from the African Cup of Nations, he's looked at least a decent acquisition for the squad. Yeah. So I quite like the idea of goals in this game. But I think Van Persie is an angle. But I do quite like him as a first goal scorer here.
Have we got the odds for that, Gareth?
We have, yeah. Van Persie is 6 to score the first goal, and worth mentioning that this is the weekend match. Big games, big named offer at HeavenBet, and if Wayne Rooney scores the first goal in this match, then HeavenBet will refund losing first or last goal scorer bets and correct scores. So certainly put your Van Persie bets on. Yeah. If he scores first, you're a winner, and if it's Rooney, then you get your money back.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to do it. I just think as well, Arsenal will have been targeting this fixture all season, waiting for Van Persie to come back, and the fact that he's coming back as a champion just before, I think that's probably going to have knocked the stuffing out those supporters a bit. So yeah, I'm going to go with Robin. He looks back in form.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tempting when you see Manchester United at such a big price. There's only 6 games in the domestic season where they ever go off even odds against, and they're as big as 3.35 here. The twice they've been similar sorts of prices this season at Chelsea and at Manchester City. They've won them both. And Arsenal haven't been a team that I've been keen to back, particularly bearing in mind their chronic record when they've come up against the top sides this year. 1 win in 9 against the top 6 in England. Absolutely outclassed in a lot of European games, although they did have that win in Munich in what was almost a dead game. But having said all that, and I don't think there's ever going to be an occasion where Sir Alex sends a team on the field that isn't fully fired up and aiming to win. I just think the fact that they are champions, it's got to take that slight edge off. So I'm going to side with Arsenal here. I mean, some of the early value's gone now. They're into 2.2. They were bigger earlier in the week, and I suspect they'll go even shorter than 2.2 because they seem very popular with a lot of the shrewd money at the moment, Arsenal. So yeah, I'm going to go with a home win here. Even with all those facts that I am aware of, but I'm going into this with my eyes open. I just think that Arsenal 2.2 home advantage. I think that'll that's good enough for me.
Okay, next game we're moving on to is Chelsea versus Swansea.
Chelsea for this game 1.35, draw 5.15, Swansea 9.4. Been a while since they've won.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've won.
They're in cruise control, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they won the game directly after the Capital One Cup final, didn't they? They beat Newcastle, but since then they haven't won in 5, drawn the last 2. But they're conceding goals, which is something they haven't really done. I think they conceded exactly 2 in 4 of those games. This will be Chelsea's 63rd match of the season. They've been at Basel on Thursday night, and it just doesn't seem to have really caught up with them yet. I've been waiting for them to sort of really start to flag, and it hasn't happened to the extent that I thought it would.
Well, even like the Man City Cup semi-final, where you thought that they were tired, and they came good at the end.
They came strong towards the end of the game.
Conserving energy or something.
So that possibly, and I think that's the way I'm going to look to play this game. I think Swansea, they've obviously had a fantastic result at Stamford Bridge already in the semi-final, 1-2-0. And they've only conceded once to Chelsea in 3 previous games. And I think they'll try and keep it tight early on. But I expect Chelsea to prevail eventually. So I'm looking at draw half-time, Chelsea full-time, Chelsea clocking up a 6th Premier League home win in a row.
That's priced at 4.3, and it's a bet that I do like. I think that's a very good way of of getting with Chelsea without taking the very short 1.35. I mean, look at Swansea, 9.4, based on ability and some of the form they were showing earlier in the season. You think that's a fantastic price, 9.4, but they just haven't really shown much recently. A lot of nice possession football, but these goals issues. I guess if you're looking at the side with Swansea, maybe you'd be tempted by Man Utd, 9.5 to score the first goal. He scores so many of their goals, and I mean 9.5, could be. Yeah, I'm tempted by that. Okay,
we're going to move now to the bottom of the table. Reading versus QPR, both teams on 24 points.
Reading 2.6, draw 3.4, QPR 2.7. Are either team good enough to win a game?
Well, possibly not. The wooden spoon derby, because I'm pretty sure the loser of this one will be finishing bottom of the Premier League. There's been little between the teams in terms of points, both locked on 24 points, and there was little between the teams in the game at Loftus Road earlier in the season, which finished 1-1. And it's a similar scoreline that I'll be looking at this week, because I don't really think either side have just, as I say, got enough belief about them to really finish this season on a high. So the draw, as the outsider of the three results, is the bet for me, and specifically 1-1.
So 1-1 priced at 6.8, the draw at 3.4. It's actually consecutive games that myself and Sam are in agreement. But yeah, I can imagine it being a draw, which is no good to either of them. 3.4, and they'll meet again in the Championship next season, no doubt.
Maybe Loic Remy will end up finally at Newcastle. Moving on, Aston Villa versus Sunderland.
Not if they're in the Championship as well.
With Jimmy Keve. Aston Villa 2.2, the draw 3.35, and Sunderland 3.4.
Sunderland have looked impressive in these two games so far. They've won 2 in a row, which is actually the longest current winning streak in the Premier League. So you don't think you'd be saying that about Sunderland this season.
Just a 1 was a winning streak for them earlier this season, I think.
Absolutely. And I think they'll probably be targeting the points here as well, because Villa still struggling at the bottom. Beaten 3-0 at Manchester United, and they had plenty of chances in that game, but they just look so fragile in defence. And it's just anytime any team attacks Aston Villa with confidence, you are worried, and Sunderland certainly have this confidence at the moment. I do like Villa going forward. Sort of Weimann, Benteke and Agbonlahor, they didn't have their shooting boots on at Old Trafford. But I think
had plenty of chances though.
They did have plenty of chances.
If you're creating chances against United, then you'd fancy yourself to create chances against Sunderland.
But this is a huge game for them, and depending on how results have gone before, they could really take this opportunity to move themselves away from trouble. I'm going to play safe, both teams to score.
Okay.
Both teams to score, which is 1.7. I think the thing that Lambert will really be hammering into is Villa players. I mean, if you look at their actual form over the last 9-10 games, it's not amazing. But if you look at the sort of 5 games that they would have really been targeting the 3 points, they only drew against Fulham. But the other 4 where they would have been looking at thinking, we've got a chance of winning, they've won all of those. The defeats they've had have been in their tough games. So I think Villa are playing well enough, you'd think, to certainly stay up. But I mean, Di Canio has just done something to this team, and it's difficult to know whether it can be a long-term effect. I was a bit sceptical after the Newcastle win about whether they'd continue that, but they beat Everton, so I'm loath to be steaming into Villa at 2.2. But I suspect that maybe the Sunderland bandwagon might come to a halt on Monday night. Pushed for a bet here, I'd go Villa to win 2-1, which is 8.1.
Okay. So you've heard what the boys have had to say. It's time to hear from the one and the only Mike Holden.
I think the way to play this game is probably on the Asian handicap, purely because a draw suits Sunderland. It keeps Aston Villa at arm's length. Whereas for Villa, they've made some good progress as the season's progressed under Paul Lambert. But I think in front of a big crowd at Villa Park, after everybody's played before this weekend, teams will have picked up points and just asserted a bit more pressure on Villa going into this game. So I think that, it's going to be a tough game for them to play, and I think a draw might not be a bad result for Villa as the game pans out with the energy that Sunderland will have. So we could have a situation where the draw suits both sides, but for me the bet to have is Sunderland on the Asian handicap.
Yeah, so different options here. You could play Sunderland off level ball, so a draw no bet option. So Sunderland +0, that's priced at 2.3. If Sunderland win, it's a winner. If it's a draw, then he gets his money back. The other bet would be Sunderland +0.25, which is +0.25. That's priced at 1.9. So half the bet on Sunderland +0.5, and half the bet on Sunderland off level ball.
So we are moving on to Italy, Serie A, and it's Torino versus Juventus.
We do like a local derby. Torino 5.6, the draw 3.7, and Juventus 1.6 for a win which would take them very, very close to the title.
Yeah, well, if Napoli have dropped points at bottom of the table, Pescara on Saturday, then Juventus can actually wrap up a second successive Scudetto, and we're better to do it than the home of their city rivals, a home where they did play for a few years as well. So they have the edge in these derbies as well. Well, I have more than the edge because it's 13 games since Torino actually beat Juventus. Yeah. And sort of more fascinating is the fact that Torino haven't scored in the last 7 derbies against Juventus. So Juventus very superior in these games. That includes the 3-0 win at the Juventus Stadium earlier in the season.
So what's the way to place a bet then on this game?
I think I'm looking at a scoreline. A correct score is not usually the way I go, but I just think with it being a derby, it's still going to be quite fraught. The game back in December was certainly that way. So 2-0 is the bet that I've picked out here. Okay. I just like it. It's a scoreline that Juventus have done well with recently.
That's priced at 6.8 for Juventus to win 2-0. Just the fact that it is this local derby, and it's this old cliche about form going out the window a little bit. Yeah. But maybe Torino have got something there that'll just put the party on hold for a little bit. Certainly be looking to side with Torino on the Asian handicap. So, I mean 5.6 is a fair old price in a game where there's so many variables. Early red card or
no, it was an early red card in the first fixture. So
there's always it's difficult to assess. Always potential for something to go wrong for the Juventus script. And Torino 5.6 for me.
Really, Juventus just seem to have hit form at the right stage of the season for me. Won the last 6 in Serie A, unbeaten in 8. I understand where you're going with it, but I just think this will be their weekend again.
Okay, moving on then to La Liga and Real Sociedad versus Valencia. Who do you fancy in this Mediterranean encounter?
Well, you don't need to speak to Sam on this one, do you? Because he's well known for his love of Sociedad. Yeah. They're 2.3 to win this one. Draw 3.5. Valencia 3.2.
Are you sticking with your favourite?
I am sticking with Sociedad. The lads looked good last week. Well, they 0-0 draw at Osasuna, which is still, despite Osasuna's placing, is a tough area to go. But the great thing I love about Sociedad is they play some beautiful football at times, but they like to rough it up at times as well. Valencia seem to have come good at the right stage of the season, because I remember Sociedad going to Mestalla earlier in the season and thumping them 5-2. Since Ernesto Valverde's come in, they have been on the up. It's just 2 defeats in the last 16, and they are unbeaten in 5, and they gave Malaga an absolute walloping last week. They've not won away at a team, Valencia, outside of the bottom 6, so they still do struggle in their troubles. They've got, I think, 4 or 5 games still to come away from home as well. And I just think there is too much pressure on Valencia getting this Champions League spot, where there seems to be none on Sociedad. But Valencia need this because of the financial distress that they're in. They really need Champions League football. So Sociedad unbeaten in 12, 1 defeat in 22 games. I'm going to stick with them. They're a good side.
Yeah. There was certainly an element of a slightly ridiculous angle to that 5-1 thumping over Malaga and getting those 4 goals in quick succession, but they were very impressive for long spells of the game. And I think Sociedad 2.3. It's not a price that appeals there. Valencia maybe to nick this one.
So Gareth, best bets for Sunday?
I'm going to go for Arsenal 2.2 against a team that I'm hoping have been celebrating even harder than you were telling me backstage before the show.
Sam, best bet for Sunday?
I'm looking at this draw half-time, Chelsea full-time against Swansea, 4.3. Okay.
And I like the Juventus Real Sociedad double.
So Sociedad 2.3 and Juventus 1.6. If you do that in a double, that pays 3.7.
Okay. You can place your bets for any of these games and much more on our website at heavenbet.com. Now, for our Danish viewers, you can watch this show back on footy.dk, and you can place your bets on mermaidbet.dk. We'll see you same time, same place next week. See you then. Bye-bye. Do you rate your powers of prediction? Well, now is your chance to prove it and win a prize. Log on to bestofthebets.com, and in the tips and advice section, you'll find 6 Premier League games discussed in the show. Predict home, draw, or away for each one, and 4 or more correct answers guarantees a prize. Good luck.